Hi, everybody. I believe we're live now. I'm waiting for some communication from my team, my my Free Spirit colleagues to let me know that we're definitely live. I believe that we are. Would like to welcome everybody. We are here this week with the Free Spirit Inspired By series, and I'm very excited that we are here this week with Gudrun Erla of GE Designs. We have a very exciting, she has a very exciting, episode for us today. So it's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I wanted to let you know that I am Sharon from Free Spirit Fabrics. And if you're interested in finding out any more about our fabric, please go to our website. It's Free Spirit Fabrics, plural.com. And just go there and look up any of our collections or any information that you'd like to know about Free Spirit Fabrics. And the quilt behind me was made and designed by Gudrun. This is in Tim Holtz fabric. This is the Yuletide collection. And this quilt is Strippy Forest, and it's from one of Gudrun's books, Stripology, Mixology. And it's a beautiful quilt. You can see where we have the low volume prints behind in the background and a lot of the prints from Tim's provisions, as well as the actual collection. So Gudrun will talk more about that as we go on into this episode today. And I just want to see, okay, we are on. I have confirmation. I thought that we were. So I'd like to welcome Gudrun. I am going to mute myself so that Gudrun and I don't bounce back and forth. I know in some episodes there's a little bouncing back and forth. So I'm going to mute myself today so that when Gudrun's on, she's on, and then we'll have a little break. I'd like to, again, welcome everybody. We love our Free Spirit fans. We're so happy that you're here. Please send us thumbs up. Please send us a heart. Tell us where you're from. Send us along some questions. Nancy Jewell will be on behalf of Free Spirit, and she'll be answering any questions that you post about Free Spirit fabrics. And Gudrun has someone from her team, Amy, who will be on, and she will be answering questions about GE Designs as well. And I'm sure that Gudrun will get on after this and answer any questions that may have been missed. So we encourage you to send along any questions. We will do a question and answer at the end. I'll be scrolling through, and as long as it's something new that we haven't already covered, we'll answer it. And I'd also like to let you all know that this will be on our Facebook page. So if you've missed the beginning of it, you can go back and review it. And it will also be on our Instagram page, and it will also be on YouTube. So after we are done, you can come in and view this as many times as you would like. So Gudrun, without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to our viewers. I'm very, very excited. We are focusing on Tim Holtz today, but Gudrun also has some other surprises in her bag, which we're excited to see as well. So
thanks, Sharon.
To you, Gudrun. I'm muted now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. And I'm most appreciative of Free Spirit to have me there. I don't know if you can see me, but I hope all the technology is working. Sharon, I think they're only seeing you. Okay, there I am. All right, good. Just want to make sure that you can see it. Don't start showing you something. I got to do a little introduction since we have some new viewers. I do a lot of live shows myself, but I don't always have a whole new base of people watching. So I'm going to start by introducing myself properly. My name is Gudrun Erla. I'm born and raised in Iceland and have been kind of a Minnesota transplant for the past 17 years. So I've been designing full-time, writing patterns and books for 17 years. I did some fabric design. I've designed some rulers, and kind of going to flip through a lot of these little things throughout our little show today. Now, I love working with all kinds of fabrics. And of course, Free Spirit Fabrics is no exclusion because they have these amazing bold prints all the time. So I want to start with kind of describing a little bit of my style. So my motivation as a designer has always been finding faster and easier ways to do things. And I will introduce you to the tools that I use and I have designed that kind of take you on that path, and also show you a little insight into my pattern construction. So that has always been kind of the thread. I think it kind of goes back to, I had, 3 jobs when I started quilting, and then little kids. And so there was always just a very narrow window of time to get to work on things. And so that has kind of been the thread throughout my design life. And I absolutely love it, because I love to make something that might look really hard, but is really easy to make, and it's actually kind of fun making it. And so having fun in the process is what I'm all about. So my patterns, I design usually from a geometric place, which means that my patterns are kind of just based on shapes, which then translate very well into whatever fabric you like, or fabric styles. So my quilts can be made with all types of fabrics. So I'm not like a look-based designer. So some designers have just a certain look, and so most of their quilts are kind of within that style. But my patterns work for so many styles of fabric, whether it's traditional or modern, primitive, bold, neutrals, and then everything in between. And because I also love scrappiness, I'm a fabricaholic. Not afraid to say that is a great thing to be. So I love to try different fabrics, try different color combinations. And I always say, if I can have more fabrics in one quilt than less, that's just a good thing. And so helping feeding that addiction. So using up some of my collection or my stash, and then of course, replenishing it back when I see some new fun stuff. So I, like I said, love trying out unique color combinations. And of course, the bold prints from Free Spirits. The Free Spirit designers are really have made some of my quilts come to life. So you will see a few here displayed behind me. I'm going to talk about each of them a little bit later, but I'm also going to show you a lot of quilts with photos from some of my fans. I have both a group on Facebook. So a lot of my people like to share their creations there, and they've used a lot of different Free Spirit fabrics. So I'm gonna show you those, and so a little bit of inspiration. I also am going to show you, like I said, a little insight into my patterns. And my kind of pattern design took a jump in a different direction. I shouldn't say different direction. I think the construction took a jump in a different direction after I created my first ruler, designed my first ruler with Creative Grids. If you've heard of the Stripology rulers. Now there are 3 of them. So we have the 3 different rulers. So there's the Stripology XL, the Stripology Squared, and then the Stripology Mini. So these rulers are completely a game changer for so many quilters since they came out. And of course, love introducing them to new people. If you've never seen them, they look quite big, of course, and a little bit scary, but they are slit rulers. So you place your rotary cutter in the slits, and then you follow those slits to cut your strips, to subcut your strips into squares and rectangles, and then some. There's all these other things that you can do with it. I have a lot of videos on my website, but I thought I would show you just a little videos to kind of introduce you if you've never seen them in action. So the first one I'm going to show you. So this is the Stripology XL, which is kind of my workhorse. So that's the biggest ruler. It does pretty much all of it. And the squared one is the next size down. It's pretty much just half the size of the XL. It does a lot of the things that the XL does. Most things, it's just a smaller version. So easier to maneuver, easier to travel with. Both of them are squaring up rulers as well. So you can square up any size block up to 12.5 inches. And then the mini is just for working with kind of smaller things. And I love working with it when I'm using charm squares or little scraps, making little blocks. So you can square up blocks up to 6.5 inches there. So I love using it for squaring up my block parts. For example, half square triangles, quarter square triangles, things like that, that are then going to go into a bigger block. So without going too deep into each ruler, I just want to show you some of the basics. So let's check out this first video. So some of the things I do every day with the XL. So that is cut my fabric into strips. Most patterns call for cutting your fabric into strips first. So this ruler goes on top of your folded fabric. So you take your fabric bolt fold and you fold it over the selvages. So you have 4 layers of fabric. And that way you can cut full width all your fabric for whatever your pattern calls for. So you can cut whatever strip width. The slits are 1/2 inch apart. So I cut some 2.5, and then I cut some 1.5 inch strips. Now, to make sure that those strips are perfectly straight and no elbows in your strips, you just want to make sure that that bolt fold, when you fold it over your selvages, that bolt fold, and now the new fold you've created below, those two need to be perfectly parallel for your strips to be straight. And as you can see, you place your ruler on top, and then you just move your hand down and you cut. So of course, you're moving a lot faster and getting things done faster than moving a ruler every time. But I tell you, the best part about these rulers is that each and every strip that you cut with a stripology ruler are going to be the exact same size. And so the accuracy is really the biggest part of and biggest game changer in using the ruler. Now, the time saving effort, of course, is huge as well. So once you have your strips cut, I take all my strips and I line them up on my cutting mat. So I'm going to show you in this next video. I line them up and I make stacks on my cutting mat. So depending on how many strips I need to subcut, I could be subcutting 12, 16 strips at the same time. All the horizontal lines on the ruler, I can line up all my strips so they are all straight and then cut everything at the same time. And so as you can imagine, I can cut 300 2.5 inch squares that you need in about 30 seconds. And so this is the big game changer. And then of course, the best part, the squares are all going to be the exact same size. So this is something I use every single day. The ruler has a few shortcuts. I cut a lot of 2.5 inch strips and 1.5 inch strips. So it has little markings on the bottom slits so that you don't even have to do any math. You can just follow your signs and go. A third video I wanted to show you, also subcutting. If you do any kind of strip sets, I love designing my patterns. So a lot of strip sets and then subcut those strip sets. I can do multiple strip sets at the same time under my ruler, just making sure I line up those seams with the lines on the ruler, and then you'll have perfectly accurate subcuts every single time without having to do those correctional cuts when you get a little bit off. So I love that. That's something I use all the time. Now, even though the ruler has slits every 1/2 inch, you can easily cut any kind of 1/4 inch increment. So we're talking 2 1/4, 2 3/4, anything there in between. So how you do that, there's a chart that comes with the ruler. There's also a bigger chart that you can download off my website, which is much better and bigger. I'll show you right here. So this is actually a full-size page this way. So I'm going to show you this next video. My favorite size for cutting binding is 2 1/4 inches. So this is how I do that. So you have first column. So you just find the size of your cutting. You find that first column and you follow the slits that you cut through in the first column. And then you remove your slivers that you cleaned off with trimming through the 0 slit in the beginning. You slide the ruler over. So now you line your fabric up with that 1/4 inch line that's to the left of the 0, and go back to your chart and follow the cutting instructions in the second column. So you're literally cutting between those first cuts. So you have 2 1/4 inch strips, easy. And you can of course do that with the same, if you need to subcut those. You can cut 60-degree and 45-degree diamonds with a ruler, easily done with either just single strips or with piece strips. So whatever quilt you're working on, we call it stripologizing the patterns. So if you happen to have a pattern from a designer that's not me, you can always stripologize it. So those of us that have been using the stripology rulers for years, and even new ones, we call ourselves stripologists. Yes, very distinguished and fun. And you should know that I do, in my patterns and books that have come out since the rulers came out, I do include instructions and illustrations using my rulers, using the stripology rulers, but I do also give instructions on using just regular rulers. So anybody can make the patterns whether you have them or not. So, but this using the rulers has kind of sparked all these ideas for companion notions that you might see more as we go through the show today. So I have designed three different notions. First one I want to talk about is the ruler stickers. So these are little ruler markers. You will see them On my rulers, you can mark the slits that you're cutting through. You can also mark in the middle anywhere if you're lining up your fabric with a certain mark on the ruler. And so they come in, we have 2 different colorways. We have this pack, which is blue, green, and pink. And then this one is purple, yellow, and red. I call this the Fruity Fiesta palette. It's a brand new one. And so there's multiple stickers in a pack, and they do not leave any residue on your ruler. You can stick it onto paper. It even peels off of paper without any residue. You can put it on your cutting mats, any kind of ruler templates, and you can leave it and reuse them a few times until they don't stick anymore. They're just really great. And it's okay if you cut through them too, because you don't damage your cutter or anything, because they will just split apart because it's just a sticker. So these have been fabulous. The second one is my point trimmers. These are specifically designed when the XL ruler came out, because now you have the option of cutting your strips into 60-degree diamonds, 60-degree triangles. So these are little point trimmers, because of course, when you're cutting triangles from a strip, they will all have their points on them. So this one will trim those points off, so the actual construction with those diagonal and angled pieces is as easy as pie. Everything will come together easy. So they're called the G-Easy point trimmers. And like I said, I have videos on how to use all of these things on my website, plus endless ruler videos. If you want to if your Netflix queue is all of a sudden just empty, which I doubt it may be, because of COVID, everybody's watched all their shows now. So I have a lot of shows, a lot of videos on my website. So go check that out. So I like to design a lot of patterns using pre-cuts, because they are just so handy. They're great kind of set sizes that I like to work with. Plus, like you heard earlier, I like scrappiness. So I like that there's so much variety in those pre-cuts. I don't always love the way they're cut, because they're sometimes not accurate. So I use my rulers, of course, to trim them to shape. But sometimes also I like to curate my own. So even though I want to work with those sizes, I like to curate my own set of pre-cuts. So many times, instead of purchasing those pre-cuts, I actually purchase fat quarters or half yards of a certain line, and then I can kind of work with that from that. It's a kind of an idea I introduced in my latest book, Stripology, Mixology. But here's how I cut up my fat quarters and half yards. So I take a fat quarter and I'll cut a 10-inch strip. I'll cut 2 2.5-inch strips, and then I get at least 1 or sometimes 2 1.5-inch strips. And so then that 10-inch strips becomes 10-inch squares. And then I have my 2.5-inch strips or a jelly roll, and then those bonus 1.5-inch strips. So 21 fat quarters will give you actually what amounts to a full layer cake, a half a jelly roll, and then at least 21 or more of the 1.5-inch strips. So I wanted to demonstrate to you live how I cut a fat quarter. I have this beautiful fat quarter, of course, a Free Spirit one from Anna Maria Horner. And so cutting fat quarters, you want to make sure you fold them along the long side. So your strips are going to be cut from the longer side of the fat quarter. So I will just take the selvage and fold it to the top. And then my ruler, I'm going to align a horizontal line on the ruler with my bottom fold. Since this is just a fat quarter, I only have 1 fold. Now, if this was full with fabric, if this was a half yard, I would take my bolt fold and fold it over, and then I just would have made sure that those 2 folds are parallel in order for my strips to be straight. So I align a horizontal line on the bottom of the fold. I make sure that my raw edges are to the left of that 0, and then I'm ready to make my cuts. Now, if I was cutting a bunch of these, I would stack a few up. So with the Stripology rulers, you can use either 45mm cutters, or you can use the big 60mm. If you're using 45, I recommend no more than 4 to 6 layers of fabric. But with a 60-degree blade, you can cut up to 10 layers of fabric, which is really nice and speeds the process up even more. So you want to just place your rotary cutter in the teardrops at the bottom, and then I cut through the 0 first, because that cleans off my edge. And then I'm going to cut my 10, and then I'm going to cut my 2 2.5. So I'm following these black squares on the bottom of my ruler. That marks my 2.5. And then I can get at least 1.5 inch strip. Depending on how your fat quarters were cut, sometimes you get 2, but in this case, I only got 1. So here, whether I'm going to be making some quilts using 10-inch squares or 2.5-inch strips, I always kind of save the rest. So these just go into my bins of strips. Also, I have a bin of 1.5-inch strips. And then this guy gets cut into 10-inch squares. So I usually, if I'm cutting a lot, I will just open it up and then lay my ruler back on top, aligning a horizontal line on the edge of the fabric. And then again, cut through, making sure I'm trimming that selvage off in that first cut. And then I get 2 big 10-inch squares from this strip. Now, if I was working with 5-inch squares, then I could always take these and cut them apart to make 5-inch squares. But this is how I like to curate my own pre-cuts. And like I said, I have a collection. I like to call my stash my collection because stash has kind of gotten this negative connotation to it lately. And I think fabric is nothing negative about fabric. So I like to call my fabric collection a collection versus stash. So yes, I do collect 10-inch squares, 2.5-inch strips, and 1.5-inch strips. And I'm going to show you some of my patterns, what I do with those different pre-cuts and how we play with it using the rulers, making things that look hard, but super easy to do. So the first pattern I want to show you, just to give you an idea of how easy something is, I want to show you with a video. So I'm going to show you how the Nova pattern is constructed. Now it's sitting here behind me. I'm just going to pull up this top quilt just to show you how it is, because this one I made with Kaffe 10-inch squares, and then I just used a background to go with it. It really makes it kind of sharp. But you look at this quilt and you'll see all these triangles, you see these stars, and it kind of looks hard that you have to match and make all these stars. But of course, you're not going to believe it, but you're not sewing a single triangle. So let's just check out this little video. I'm going to talk you through it. So we start with, this is the pattern. This is the quilt I used for the cover. You start with a light and a dark 10-inch square, and we just cut them up according to the pattern. We're cutting rectangles, and we take those rectangles. We are going to have a square and 2 small rectangles and then 2 longer rectangles. We take the dark square and border it with a light, and vice versa. We're going to take the light and border it with the dark. We stack them up, bring the ruler back on top. We make 2 cuts through the stack, and then we just swap the centers and sew it back together. And then the final step is just squaring it up. So this is how you can see the Stripology squared ruler in action. It has the squaring up. And then you create the stars by just alternating the blocks with a light block with a dark block. And that's how the stars in the corners get created. So fun, right? A lot easier than what it looks. And so the squared ruler, like you saw, squaring up the blocks, there's nothing better when you get to that point of putting your blocks together than having all blocks being the same size. And I always include pressing instructions in my patterns as well, so that all of those seams will just nest perfectly together and everything will kind of come together smoothly. Now, the squared ruler is not the only squaring up ruler, because the XL has all the markings to do the squaring up as well. So another 10-inch square quilt that I made using Kaffe fabrics is my algorithm quilt from my Stripology book. So I'm going to show you a picture of it. I don't have it here, but here's the pattern, how it's done. So again, this one only uses 10-inch squares. So it was really perfect for those Kaffe pre-cuts because they were kind of coordinated by color anyway. And so you just take all your squares, you fold them in half, you make 2 cuts through the stack, and then you actually just swap the fabrics around and you sew a strip between 2 triangles, matching it all up, and then you square those squares up. I'm actually using the original ruler in this particular video because the XL or the squared ruler weren't out yet, because this pattern is found in my Stripology squared book. So then you create these blocks and you cut them apart. You get mirror image blocks, and then once you put them together, they have no seams to match. So you just kind of flip them around and it's a really fun effect. So let me show you the one that I made with the cave fabrics. So I used kind of the greens and the blues, and it's just a really fun kind of an abstract quilt, but super fast, really goes fast. I have another version that actually my friend made from, I think it's just a mixture of cave colors. Her company is all about color quilting, and she's online. And so she's been selling kits, putting together kits for this quilt, but instead of using the same fabrics in the middle strip, like I showed you, you can use an accent color if you want a more uniform strip going through it. So it gives it a totally different look and just something fun to try that way. So then I wanted to show you a few more of my 10-inch square patterns, just a little quilt show. So some of my, like I said, some of my followers, all those quilts that have been made. And so the first up here I wanted to show you is Amelie. So this quilt, it takes 10-inch squares, and then you just need one accent color. And in this case, she chose a burgundy accent color, and that kind of creates that pinwheel action between the blocks. But this quilt is super easy to make. It looks like you're doing small triangles and large triangles, but it's all about cutting and splitting things up. Now this one is called Coral and is in my Stripology Mixology book. I always point this one out because sometimes people are afraid to cut up large scale prints and if they get too small, but I actually love the effect of doing that. So this is a Tula Pink line, and you probably know that sometimes her designs are really large scale, many of them are, but I love cutting them up small because then you can kind of, that whole print takes on a different look in each square. So it looks like you have more variety than you really do. And here's Stella. Stella is in that same book. So this one was made also with Tula Pink fabrics, I believe, and then just a black background or alternate color. So really sharp. That's a super easy quilt, really fast and great if you need a quick gift. It's really fun to make too. Clarissa is one that is actually hanging in the corner. I used Anna Maria Horner for mine, but this one I believe is mostly cave. And this is either a start of it or this is the crib size. All of my patterns, I write it for as many sizes as possible. Now the next one up is Roxanne, another really fun pattern and something that looks harder than it really truly is. It's like this on 0.9 patch would be kind of impossible to make, but if you had to cut each one and cut it out with templates probably and triangles and things, but this is all the trickery of the ruler, how that works, and cut and slice. This one is Emma. I actually made this. This is a Tula Pink line, De La Luna, I believe. I made this, and in mine, I kind of fussy cut the main print with the faces and swapped out some blocks to use that print. Now this one was made by someone else, but I think that really gave it so much fun and kind of life if you wanted to feature some of those larger scale prints. You can just leave out a whole block. Now this next one is Kira, one of my most popular patterns. Again, a pattern that is full of triangles, but you don't ever sew a single triangle. This is probably one of the easiest quilts that you'll ever make. So it goes together so slick and quickly. And then one of my newer ones that came out last fall is Lucy. Lucy is another one that looks hard because you see a bunch of triangles, you see trapezoids, and then you see diamonds, and you think, oh my, I don't want to deal with that. Well, just remember, you don't sew a single one of those. You're only dealing with squares and rectangles. So Lucy has actually in the pattern 4 different layouts, but you can come up with more layouts than that. And of course, Kira would work that same way, but it's just really fun to play with some of those layouts and kind of create your own. Now, my newest pattern, 10-inch square pattern, is called Venus. And that one is a very kind of a unique quilt with, again, multiple layout options. So I thought we could take a little closer look at that one. So here is the cover of that pattern. And because I actually used this pattern and this line to work with Tim Holtz's newest line that's coming out this fall. Is called Abandon, I believe. I hope I'm right on that. Yeah, Abandon. And so I want to show you how this one comes together, because yeah, here's the one I made. It's the one that's hanging behind me, but it's kind of cooler to see it up close. What I love about his prints, because they have so much color difference within the print, is that it really fuzzes the line of between the elements of the block. So it makes it really artsy. It makes it kind of almost three-dimensional, kind of shining through it. But I wanted to show you, and I'm going to use, you can use either the squared ruler for this quilt or the XL, but I'm going to use the squared, and I'm going to just show you how we cut the fabric and how that block comes together. So I'm going to start with the two fabrics that I want together in the block. So I'm going to use one of these prints, and I love this because you see here, this side of the print is yellow, and then this side has all these blues and oranges, which means you have that variety within the block. So I will just stack these up, and you want to make sure to stack them up right side up. And so they're both 10-inch squares. I just cut them with my ruler, so I know they're really accurate. I have used my ruler stickers to mark all my markings, so I'm going to flip this so you can probably see it better with that brighter color on top. I think that's a great idea. So like this. And so I'm going to start by aligning my 10-inch squares inside my 10-inch square. And then you would follow the instructions in the pattern, because we're going to do a little bit of twisting. Twist the ruler, and then we're going to make a cut according to the pattern again. So that's the first cut. It just cut off this little piece. And now I'm going to take this stack and turn it counterclockwise. We line it up again, and we're going to turn it the other direction. And I tell you in the pattern where to place all these markings as well. So I'm going to make two cuts here. So then we have these two pieces cut. I'm going to move them over to the side. And then this last one, we're going to turn it one more time, and then just align the zero slit up here and make that last cut. So now we have the block in these pieces. So the 10-inch squares get cut into these pieces. And so now we're going to make two reverse blocks. So all we're going to do, we're going to take these two. So these become a part of this, and we piece it. And of course, it's going to look a little bit weird, but this is how the block comes together. It's going to look a little weird when we have it pieced, and I'm going to show you, but of course the magic happens when we square it up. So here is a block that has been sewn together, and you'll see it's really off on the sides, because sometimes there's multiple seams, and this one there's no seam. So now it's time to square it up. So we're going to turn it a certain way and square it to an 8-inch block. So with both the squared ruler and the XL ruler, we have black lines for whole inch sizes, and then white lines for half-inch sizes. So for an 8-inch block, I follow just the numbers here. Here's my 8, and here's my black 8-inch square. So I'm going to center that on the block. I actually have markings that I am going to use, and also a diagonal line through the block that I am lining up in certain places to make sure that all my blocks are going to be trimmed the same and the right way. So then I just make two cuts. What's great about squaring up with the stripology rulers is that these slits, if you have thickness in your block, the slits will just lift up where there's thickness. They won't, you won't have your ruler dancing on top of your block. So then I'm going to just turn the block and trim the other two sides. I again have different color arrows to make sure I'm lined up correctly, and make my two cuts. And I have that perfectly squared up block. So here's my block. Here's the opposite that got pieced with the opposite coloring. And because we line things up, everything will come together when we try and sew it together. These will match also because they're pressed opposite. So then everything will nest together. So one layout is, let's look at that Tim Holtz quilt back up on the screen. That's behind me. We'll put it on the full screen. Can you put that photo up? Yeah, so there. So this is one of the layouts And then the one that I used for the original pattern, I'm going to hold this quilt up here just to show you how different it is. And it really kind of demonstrates how you can really use my patterns with different fabrics and they will just look totally different. So that's a different layout, but also just a completely different look. And for me, being that I love so many different things and I love to try different things, that's one of my favorite things, to see my quilts and my patterns being used in so many different colorways and different fabrics. So I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure to throw out any questions if you have them, and we will try and answer them either afterwards, or Amy will try and catch them. So I also have a lot of strip patterns. I've been doing strip patterns since before they started selling the strip jelly rolls and all those packs of strips. So along with the 10-inch squares, I do also 5-inch square patterns. And I've written multiple books on using strips, both using 2.5-inch strips and then also 1.5-inch strips. So I thought we'd look at some examples of my strip quilts using Free Spirit fabric. So we'll start with this one. This is my strip to shore. Actually, this was our quilt along earlier this year, or I call it every year I do a strip along, just a more fun version of a quilt along. And so this is the result of one of the people that joined in on that. And here's another version using Tula. First one was Cave, and I love that, and I love that added border on the outside. Then we have a bobbin weave. This one is in a book I wrote for C&T called Strip Your Stash, and all of the quilts in there are using 2.5-inch strips. Really love that quilt. It's really easy. Then we have Strip Search. Now this was one of the quilts I used when we did coloring for Cave's pre-cut program last year. So one roll will make the lap size of Strip Search, and then also Strip Stacks. You will need a background for Strip Stacks, but one roll will make the lap size along with some background fabric. So it's just all of them are fun to use, fun to make, and quick. So I have one more here that I don't have a photo of. So this one is also in that Strip Your Stash book. This was made with some older Tula pink fabrics. So this one is called Square Dance, and really love how that how they play well together, and find the perfect background to make them all dance. And then I love to piece my backs, so I could feature some of those larger scale Tula prints on the back, because I think a back is just more fun with more fabrics than just one. So I love to do that. But notice this quilt, I actually used the leftovers from this quilt and these strips to make one of my quilts for the book Stripology. So the Stripology book, this one uses 1.5-inch strips, and this was just perfect. So I'm going to show you here in the overhead, because this is a mini quilt. This is a mini strip stacks. So this uses 1.5-inch strips, and it was perfect. I could not just throw away these beautiful little leftovers. So they became a part of this book, and same background. I had leftovers of that too. So really perfect. These are great little sizes to play with and practice your free motion. So there's 6 different designs in the book, and they are made as written for a mini quilt, a table runner, or a crib size. So super fun and kind of addicting to start making those little blocks. I call them the puppy version of my bigger blocks, because they're just so cute. You just start talking to them like puppies. So I hope you try some of those. Now, speaking of strip quilts, the quilt that was hanging behind Sharon when she started it off is one of using Tim Holtz's fabrics. So here's the quilt. I just love this. So this quilt is using 1.5-inch strips. It is in my Stripology Mixology book. And I sewed this one up for their booth last quilt market, and it got a lot of attention. So this fabric is already in stores, and I know a lot of quilt shops have it and are offering it as a kit. We had kits as well. I just added some kits earlier today to the website, and hopefully they are some still there. If not, don't worry, we have more fabric on the way, and there will be more added. but I really loved using his prints for that quilt. Now, some of them are directional, so I will have a little instruction in the kit how to adjust the pattern if you want all your directional prints to be going the right way. Of course, we all have our little intricacies with that. Some people don't care, others really care. I understand that. So then I have some patterns that I call stripology mixers. And what that means, they might use 2 or 3 different types of pre-cuts all in one. So maybe 10-inch squares and 2.5-inch strips. So here's a couple. Let me show you. I have, this one is Ava. This is a really great pattern using 10-inch squares and 2.5-inch strips. So she used Tula Pink, I believe, and some of the stripes and the polka dot basics that she has. Love that, and pairing it with that polka dot background just makes it pop. And then here's another Tula version of Ava. Really great, a larger size. I just love that. And that's a perfect background for that, for those colors. Really makes them all stand out. And then this is one of my newer ones. It's called Tailor. And so speaking of mixing prints, I love to mix prints. I love to mix fabrics from different fabric lines. It's kind of my favorite thing to do. It's something I do when I put together our stash builder bundles in my store. And so this one used African prints, not made by Free Spirit, but paired it with K Facets stripes and shots. And it just is a perfect mix. I love how that turned out, and something that I probably will be trying out myself. I just love that. So this is, so both, all of the stripology mixer quilts also have the option, if you don't have a collection of 10-inch squares or 2.5-inch strips like I do, there's also the option of just using fat quarters. So it will tell you how many fat quarters are needed. So here's another example of a fat quarter. Speaking of fat quarters, I have been doing some live quilt-alongs, one-day quilt-alongs since I got sidelined from traveling and teaching in March. I usually travel year-round all over really the world, teaching and lecturing. And so, of course, COVID happened and March just shut that completely down. So luckily, we had the setup to do live shows and things like that. So we did a quarantine quilt along in March where I designed a quilt using fat quarters because I wanted to use something that people had in their house and in their collections, because a lot of stores were closed. So this was, I called the pattern Elvira. And so there were so many Elvira quilts. There were 16,000 people that sewed with us that day. And it was really the most awesome day. So here's some versions that I found using some Free Spirit. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All the Elvira quilts are so pretty. So if you are on social media, try and Google the Elvira quilt or hashtag Elvira, hashtag quarantine quilt along. And they are just so pretty. Here's some blocks using Tula Pink. And so if you want to try out or look at any color combinations, there's thousands of Elvira quilts. So the second sew along that we did, or quilt along, a one-day quilt along, took place in May. And that one we called Hope. So I designed a pattern that used 10-inch squares and 2.5-inch strips. So you could either use just scrappy 10-inch squares and then scrappy 2.5-inch strips, or you could swap out those 2.5-inch strips and use a single fabric, so a single accent fabric. So these are all the different Hopes. Some of them use one fabric for the accent, others used a few different ones. Love this one with the stripes and the polka dots, the Cafe from Cafe, I believe. And so these are all different Free Spirit fabric lines and just so bold and beautiful. And as you can see, Hope has multiple different layout options as well as many other of my patterns. So all of those, what we did is I kind of taught live. I went live 5 times through the day. We started at 9 in the morning here in the Central Time Zone, and the last live was at 5 p.m. And we had guests along the way. And so I took you through the day, giving you steps. But all of those videos are still available on my YouTube channel. So you can still see them if you want to make use of those quilts. You can get the guidelines through the videos and the step-by-steps And I showed you how to use the rulers, the stripology rulers, and then also regular rulers. So all of this is still available. And if you are wondering what it would be like to be a part of a day like that, you have an opportunity, because we just announced our next one-day sew along will take place in August, on August 16th. So go ahead, put this on your calendar and save the date. I will be giving you all the information during my live show next week. It's my live show is called Tipsy Tuesday. Tipsy Tuesday takes place on both Facebook and YouTube, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. So make sure you check that out. I'll be showing you the quilt, the design that I designed specifically for the sew along, and giving you all the information on how to be a part of it. So please check that out. And you can watch, if you can't catch the shows live, again, they are always saved both to my Facebook page, the business page, which is GE Quilt Designs, or the YouTube channel, GE Designs YouTube channel. So I hope you check that out. I also have a group, I mentioned it earlier in the show, called Gudrun's Quilt Crew. That one is, I do a show there every Friday at 3 p.m. in the crew. I call it my Happy Friday show. I do share a cocktail every show. So that is a little bit of bonus because it's Friday. And that show is also on YouTube. So we are live on both places. Now, if you were wondering where to find some of those videos or some of my products, some of my patterns and books, so this is where you can find me. We have the website at the top. We have the Facebook pages, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and maybe just put up the website. And so if you are not a social media person and just are looking to get some information on what's going on, best way is to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. gequiltdesigns.com is my website. Sign up for the email newsletter and you won't miss a thing. So I think that's my spiel. So maybe we should check in with Sharon and see if we have any questions or something we need to talk about more.
Hey, Gudrun. Thank you. I mean, you have just shared so much. I don't even know where to begin.
Right?
Oh my goodness, it was fabulous. Nothing but very, very positive comments on your Facebook feed. Everybody loves your patterns. They love your classes. They're all excited. So I'm trying to like go back in time here to what you showed us in the beginning. So, well, welcome. Everybody's been here. We thank everybody for joining us. We love that you join us on our Inspired By, and how exciting to have Gudrun with us today. Gudrun, earlier in the show, people were loving the fact that you said your name. So maybe you could just say your name one more time.
Yes. Because you want to try and do it yourself?
Well, not me. Many. I mean, I'm not even going to attempt it, but you do say it beautifully. So say it for us again.
So my full name is Gudrun Erla Gísladóttir. That's how you would pronounce it if you were in Iceland.
Wow, it sounds beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for that. You'll probably have to sign out with it one more time. But anyways, I had a question for you when you were showing some of those. I know that they were on a video and it looked like, do you have like something underneath the cutter that rotates the cutting board?
I don't have a rotating cutting mat. I just rotate my blocks when I'm trimming them. Some of the patterns, it is beneficial to have a rotating mat, but it's not needed at all. I have actually, I'm using Creative Grids cutting mats because I helped design them. They're double-sided. And one side is just the regular kind of Creative Grid, so your regular grid. The other side is what I call the stripology side. So it only has very minimal lines, so no numbers to kind of mess up your eye, because you want to use the numbers and the lines on your ruler. So it just has lines on the mat for you to line up your fabric, to line those strips up before you put the ruler on top and chop them all up at the same time.
Yeah, no, because that was really cool when I was looking at that earlier in the beginning.
Yeah.
Your ruler's amazing. I mean, if nobody bought your ruler for for the patterns, which I don't know why they wouldn't, but I mean, just to have it for the bias for your binding. I mean,
anything.
When I was watching that,
and that's
like, oh my gosh.
A lot of people start that, they think that it's just a strip ruler and they start doing that. But once you start kind of maybe working with some of my patterns and some of these techniques, it just takes it to a whole nother level, like a superpower level.
Right,
And
exactly.
it's just everything turns out better. A lot of the comments that I've gotten from users is the piecing got so much more accurate because your cutting is more accurate. I've heard from people that have had a hard time, if you have any kind of tremors or arthritis, any kind of joint pain, anything like that, it's hard to hold the cutter up against a ruler at the same time as you're trying to cut and hold the ruler. Now the rulers have that grip on the whole back side, the Creator Grid grip. So once you lay it down on your fabric, it doesn't move. So all you have to do is put that blade in the slits and you'll get a perfect cut every time. So if you have any vision problems, anything like that, I've heard from so many people that have not been able to cut until they got a ruler, a stripology ruler. So that's what I love. I love to help out people like that.
I'm going to probably have to join your stripologist club.
Yes.
There was a lot of
coolest club on the
stripologists.
planet.
Yes, a lot of the viewers were saying, I love the stripologist.
Yeah, they have to all say, no, we shout it out. If you are a stripologist, you have to put in the comment, I'm a stripologist.
Yes, that's what all right, so let me see, there are a few questions coming in now.
Okay.
What is the fabric line you use for Venus Behind You? So that's the Tim Holtz one, correct?
The abandoned. So that line is coming into stores October, is it?
Yes, that line is coming in October. That's Tim Holtz's newest line. It's called Abandoned One. And reach out to your local quilt shop and ask them if they've ordered it. Yep. And also, let me see, there were some questions. Gudrun, I think you mentioned it about the quilt behind me. This is Yuletide, and this fabric was shipped to shops in June. So a lot of quilt shops probably still have it. Gudrun, it's very inspirational, a lot of fun. Nothing but a lot of comments here about how exciting you are, Gudrun.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Melanie Moody asked, do you have a preference for a rotary cutter? Like, is there, I think you said that, the larger one?
Yeah, you can use most cutters with my rulers. They just need to be at least a 45 millimeter blade, no smaller blade, because you have to go through the rulers and through the fabric down to the cutting mat. So I use a lot of alpha cutters. You can use ergonomic. If you use a Martelli cutter, they work great with the rulers. The only cutters I don't recommend are the ones where you would have to push down to get the blade out. And you can imagine if you're going to do that through the ruler, you'd be kind of messing up your ruler. So you don't want to use those. You want to be able to manually be able to pull that blade guard back and then it works. Yeah, so I like my 60 millimeter because I can cut a lot of layers. A 45 millimeter is good too. I use that a lot when I'm demoing. So whatever works for you.
Yes, that's a good tip about the difference in the types, and it makes sense going through all of that. Let me see, what else do we have here? The purple and green quilt. Oh, that's a quilt that Gudrun did with the Tula Pink.
Yeah, so it's Tula Pink and Cafe together. Actually, Amy pieced that one. It's Clarissa. So that's the single pattern. Very simple, but fun to do. So quick. It has very striking different layout options.
And it looks like, let me see, Pamela Casey says stripology rulers would change your cutting life. I believe that. I'm going to get one.
There you go.
Again, even if I use it for nothing but my binding, and I'm sure I won't, but I will definitely do it for that because watching that was amazing.
Somebody's asked a question, how to buy the Christmas tree pattern. So that pattern is in my stripology mixology book, along with 12 different patterns.
Yes, let me see what else. So if you have any more questions, I mean, we'll keep scrolling, Gudrun, through.
Yeah.
I just want to let the viewers know, if you have any questions about any of the fabrics that you saw, and Gudrun showed us beautiful fabrics from Free Spirit. Thank you, Gudrun, for gathering all those images. And thank you to all of your
thanks to all the people that made them.
Yes, your fans that use the Free Spirit fabrics in your patterns, and that you gathered those for us today to see them all. So thank you so much for that. But if you're interested in any more information about Free Spirit, please go to the Free Spirit website. We are freespiritfabrics.com, and you can look at all of our fabric lines that are coming. You can reach out to your local quilt store, ask her if she's getting them in. All types of different places you can reach out. And then if you're interested in anything that you saw today that Gudrun showed in terms of her rulers, her patterns, etc. on her website. I was talking to Gudrun before we started that she's got that stripologist bag, the project bag.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm probably gonna have to get that with my ruler. So the ruler will fit into that bag, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a little carrier.
Right. So that's totally awesome. And so reach out to Gudrun, look at her website. It's gedesigns.com or GD Design.
GE Quilt Designs.
Okay, plural on that as well. Quiltdesigns.com. Let me just see if there's any other questions before we pop off here. Do you sew with a 1/4 inch on all your blocks? Gudrun, let me see. Margie Bouchard asked, do you sew with a 1/4 inch on all of your blocks? I'm assuming yes. Okay.
Scant 1/4 inch.
Scant 1/4 inch. Okay. We have a stripologist from Vermont. That's Donna Pigeon. Classes online. How does that work? Margaret Sievers.
The class, so I don't teach classes. I've done the sew alongs and those are just free. So all they have to do is purchase the pattern. The Hope pattern was a donation. I donated everything to some COVID causes, some great people that were doing great things because of COVID. And so the actual videos are free. I do some on my website that you can purchase, like a pattern and a video class together. I have a Fast and Furious Club where I do Quilt As You Go patterns, 1 a month, and season 2 is coming up this fall. So I do some where you can purchase a pattern and it comes with a video.
Okay, awesome. Well, I mean, I think what's been, unfortunate with COVID has, actually brought sewing, it's unfortunate that we're in this COVID situation,
Yes.
but I think that it's really brought sewing to the forefront because everybody's at home and looking for something to do. So you're pulling out your UFOs or you're looking for something new to do. And I think that the content that you've provided is fantastic for viewers. And we, as Free Spirit, have come out with this Inspired By series, hoping to give everybody, a look behind the curtain a little, if you will, on what we're doing. And I think that it's great that there's so many sewers and so many people that are making masks. And, there's proficient sewers that are getting more proficient and there are new sewers. And so we welcome everybody. I mean, we're really excited that there's such a, new vibe here with sewing.
And that's kind of what I tried to do too. I mean, sewing for me has always been kind of my respite to get out of my, stressful life. And it's always been a relaxation, meditation, and just to get and create. And it's so healing. So in these times where it's so much uncertainty and stress and the news are just too much, it was just great. And that's kind of what I try to create with the sew alongs, just have a day where we would just be in our sewing rooms, all having so much fun, doing what we loved, even though we were all in our separate homes and separate houses all over the world though, but still kind of sewing together, working on the same project and sewing together. So that was really a great and a really bright light. It did a lot for me personally to be able to do that for people.
Yes, that's totally awesome. And I agree with you in terms of sewing. My sewing space has always kind of been my Zen space. So I agree with you. And I'm sure, many viewers and sewers around the world, like you said, have really enjoyed that. So thank you for doing it. We appreciate it. We appreciate all that you do for us, Gudrun. Gudrun is a wonderful collaborator with Free Spirit, and we love you for that. So thank you so much. And I know that we're working on future projects together. So we'd like for our viewers to stay tuned because we will have more in the future where we collaborated with Gudrun. So there's exciting things coming up. And as you can see, Gudrun has a great depth of projects she's already done and used using Free Spirit. So we appreciate that as well. We appreciate that you're a fangirl of us and we're a fangirl of you. And do you see any other questions, Gudrun, that you'd like to answer?
I'm kind of scrolling through. I think just once again, I think a lot of the question is about that quilt hanging behind you, where you can find the pattern. And it's in my Stripology Mixology book. It's actually on the wall right there. And not only 13 quilt patterns in there, there's also cocktail recipes.
Yes, I did see that. That was a wonderful addition to that book.
Yes, you make a quilt and then you reward yourself.
Yeah, or you probably should do it after, not before, once you have those blades going. So
yeah, cut first. Then have your first one.
Yeah, exactly. Then so, and then have your drink. So anyways, well, Gudrun, I think that we will sign off here for this week's episode of Inspired by, oh wait, I can't do that yet. Can't let me go because we have gifts to give away.
We have gifts, yes.
Yes,
And I wanted
forget.
to say, like, all of the patterns, the rulers, everything is on my website. I do sell fabric too, so all of this stuff will be there.
Yes, so please check out Gudrun's website. Today, I just want to make sure that we've thanked Gudrun, I want to thank you, like I already did. We want to thank Mr. Honey Producer in the background.
Oh, Mr. Honey Producer.
Yes, we want to thank him.
He's waving.
Technical savvy. Like to thank Nancy and Amy for answering a lot of the questions that have been answered today. Let me see, we talked about the projects behind, so the Tim Holtz behind me, we've talked about a few times, the Tim Holtz behind Gudrun, along with the other beautiful projects. Abandoned is coming soon, and it is a fabulous collection. I love it. Let me see. Okay, so the question for the giveaways, Gudrun is going to be giving away, Gudrun, would you like to say what you're giving away?
Yes, a $25 gift card to the GE Quilt Design store. So you can go shopping for whatever you like. Go play.
Yes, so that's a wonderful gift. And we're also going to be giving away a fat quarter bundle of the Yuletide fabrics. I hope you guys can see this pretty well here. It's the collection that's behind me, but we have a fat quarter giveaway that we're hoping you can find a fantastic pattern from Gudrun's and make something wonderful out of that. And then here is a Tim Holtz. This is the new Abandoned collection that's coming up, and it won't even be in stores until October. So if I was a lucky winner of that, I would feel even more lucky that I was receiving it.
Super special.
I know, it's a super special gift. So what we would like to know in order for you to be a winner is, when you're quilting, do you like to stick with a collection of fabrics or do you like to combine them? So we know that sometimes people may or may not like to combine them, and sometimes they like to work within themselves. We're just curious to know.
Yeah, well, so I always say this in my classes. I highly encourage rebel behavior in my classes and in what I do. So I love to mix. And I love to put unexpected things together. But there's a lot of people that are uncomfortable doing that and are more confident in just choosing within a fabric line because they know it will automatically match. So we would love to hear what you prefer.
Yes, I think it's a great question. And I agree with you, Gudrun, in being a rebel, because you never know what's, you put two things together and you never quite know, where you look at it and go, wow, that actually looks really awesome together. And you never think that it did. Yep. And I think that that's what Free Spirit brings to everybody. We bring a lot of color. We bring a lot of unexpected surprises. And I think that everybody should try exploring with Free Spirit fabrics. So anything more, Gudrun, before we sign off for today?
I don't think so. I think we put it all out there. So just come find me on my website and on my live shows. I'd love to see some new people and new folks that maybe caught me here for the first time. And I actually see there's a lot of my regular viewers watching now, so that's great.
Yeah,
like I said, I'll be live this coming Friday, which is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, and then next Tuesday announcing the big sew along.
Yes, that's totally awesome, Gudrun. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of our viewers. And please remember that you can see all of these videos. We will have them on our posted on our Facebook page. They will be on Instagram, and they will be on that's YouTube. The 3 places. So out on YouTube, and you can watch and rewatch. So, head on to any of these and rewatch everything that Gudrun just showed us today. You showed us a lot. Thank you, Gudrun. That's totally awesome. It's a lot to think about and get started on. So I think you've prompted a lot of us to get moving.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Gudrun. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Oh, next week, we will be here next Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. And we will be here with Kate and Brandon, and they will be discussing their latest book, Quilts in the Burano. And please join us. I'm sure it will be very, very special next week. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And I'm sure you all are looking forward to that as well. They will be a lot of fun. So Bye to Gudrun and goodbye to everybody. Keep sewing, and until next Wednesday at 1, we'll see you then. Thank you.